TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News, broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlights that Israel will ensure that the Ayatollah Regime in Iran does not attain nuclear weapons. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken stresses that good progress has been made in trying to achieve a resolution for Lebanon. Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei pledges that the Islamic Republic of Iran will deal a crushing response to the United States and Israel for the retaliatory attacks against Iran and its regional proxies. Israel will not cease confronting the axis of evil on all the 7 separate fronts until the strategic reality in the Middle East is fundamentally changed. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu highlighted Jerusalem's unrelenting resolve in an address to an IDF officers' course graduation ceremony.
2 days after the war broke out, on October 9th, I declared that we are going to change the face of the Middle East. A year later, during the month of September, I had said, we are changing the strategic reality in the Middle East. This is precisely what we are doing with our brave soldiers.
Netanyahu went on to highlight that Israel still finds itself in the eye of the storm, stressing that great challenges lay ahead.
We still find ourselves in the eye of the storm. Great challenges remain ahead, and I do not belittle our enemies. We will continue to manage the campaign with wisdom, determination, and discernment. From the start of this war, we withstood great pressure, both foreign and domestic, not to act in the manner in which we did. However, the principle that determined our steps were not founded in pressures, but rather the security considerations of the State of Israel. I deeply appreciate, the support of the United States. Nevertheless, my policy is simple. When it is possible, I say yes. However, when necessary, I say no.
Netanyahu's latter remark relates to a meeting he had held with U.S. Special Envoys Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein, who sought to reach a diplomatic arrangement in the days ahead, a fact relayed to Lebanese Prime Minister Najim Kati.
When I asked him if we should be hopeful, he told me, certainly, we're in a better position today than yesterday. Literally, he said, we are better off today than we were yesterday, and I appreciated that. He added that hopefully, we will be in an even better place tomorrow, God willing, and that we are closer to halting this unjust aggression against our country.
The Lebanese caretaker premier further highlighted that while the Iranian proxy Hezbollah rejected any diplomacy that did not include a resolution that would also salvage the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip, after sustaining devastating blows in recent weeks, however, Hezbollah eventually altered its position.
Hezbollah was late in separating the Lebanese front from the Gaza front, but today they managed to separate it, though the separation took some time.
It is important to know that immediately after meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, White House Special Envoys Brett McGurk and Amos Hochstein did not ultimately return to Lebanon as was anticipated, in what circulating reports stipulated bad indications. Nevertheless, during a press conference in South Korea, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken asserted that good progress had been made on the premise that any future resolution to the war would require an effective implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701.
On Lebanon, let me just say that we are working very hard and making progress on reaching understandings of what would be required for the effective implementation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. This would be the basis of a diplomatic resolution to the crisis. It's important to make sure that we have clarity, both from Lebanon and from Israel, about what would be required under 1701 to get its effective implementation. The withdrawal of Hezbollah forces from the border, the deployment of the Lebanese armed forces, the authorities under which they'd be acting, an appropriate enforcement mechanism. We have made good progress on those understandings. We still have more work to do, but that's what's necessary to get us to a diplomatic resolution, including through a ceasefire.
Returning to Netanyahu's remarks, however, Jerusalem remains determined that any future arrangement will include Israel's right to enforce its parameters on the ground.
We are decimating the axis of evil which faces us by means of calculated strikes. Terror armies will no longer exist along our borders. Hamas will no longer govern Gaza, and Hezbollah will no longer entrench along our northern border in attack positions merely several meters from our border. This will no longer happen. We also thwart logistical lines of Iran's armament shipments for Hezbollah through Syria, from which it intended to enter into Lebanon. And with regard to chatter about reaching a resolution for Lebanon, I want to clarify the arrangements, the outlines, the proposals, the numbers 1559, 1701, all these are important, but are not the core of the issue. The core is our ability and determination to enforce our security, to thwart attacks against us, and to operate against the bolstering of our enemies whenever deemed necessary. Irrespective of requirements and pressures, this is the core.
The Israeli Prime Minister went on to address the latest rhetoric coming out of the head of the so-called octopus, namely the Islamic Republic of Iran.
With regard to Iran, we struck its soft underbelly. The eloquent words of the regime's leadership in Iran, these eloquent words cannot hide or cover the simple fact: today, Israel has greater freedom of action than ever before. We can reach any place in Iran in accordance with our requirements. The core principal mission that I set for the IDF and defense establishment is to prevent Iran's ability to acquire nuclear weapons. Thwarting the nuclear program was and remains our top priority. I have not removed it, we have not removed it, and we will not remove our eyes from this objective. For obvious reasons, I cannot elaborate our plans to achieve this.
Meanwhile, in Tehran, the Islamic Republic Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, declared in an address to regime supporters ahead of celebrations commemorating the 1979 seizure of the US Embassy in Tehran that the Islamic Republic of Iran will deal a crushing response, as he termed it, to both the United States and Israel for confronting Iran and its regional proxies.
The enemies, whether the Zionist regime or the United States of America, will definitely receive a crushing response to what they are doing to Iran, the Iranian people, and the resistance front.
Subsequently, during regime celebrations, marked by burnings of American and Israeli flags alongside repeated chants of death to America and death to Israel, followers of the Ayatollah regime insisted that Iran must attack Israel.
We are here today to show to America and all the other world powers that think they can stand against Iran that we are standing by our country and they can't do a damn thing.
The only message I can give them is that we're not like you to strike and then run away when you attacked us. You should be waiting for a very severe revenge, and we'll stand by this till the end.
In my opinion, Iran should respond to Israel because the longer it doesn't, the more Israel will oppress and kill more Palestinians and the leaders of Hamas, Palestine, and Hezbollah.
Addressing regime supporters, IRGC Commander-in-Chief Major General Hossein Salami proclaimed that the Islamic Republic does indeed intend to deal the United States and Israel a devastating response, while further insisting that the defensive measures by the United States and Israel versus Iran and its proxies are rooted in their respective governments' fragile state.
Israelis and Americans cannot open a way for their political survival by massacring and killing Muslims. They act like collapsing regimes. Political systems act blindly when they collapse.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to encourage you, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Separately, if you're blessed by our productions, which are exclusively donation-based, please consider supporting our programs with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you an Erev Mevorach, and God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.